why your contractions are extremely important during labor and delivery, and especially if your baby has suffered a traumatic brain injury like HIE, hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. First of all, contractions. What are contractions? Contractions are essentially the uterus tightening and releasing. That is what contractions are. And a lot of times, women can have contractions, of course, during labor and delivery and during active labor, but sometimes they can have contractions before active labor. If you have contractions before active labor, then those can be categorized as false contractions or Braxton Hicks contractions. Now, when you're fully dilated and everything is ready to go, you're having contractions. Those contractions are working to essentially, at its basic sense, get the baby out. Contractions can play a very critical role when a baby has a traumatic brain injury, and I'm going to discuss why, from a medical legal standpoint, they are so important. Now, when you are giving birth at a hospital, more than likely you're going to be hooked up to a device called the electronic fetal heart monitor. And what that monitor is doing is it's gauging a lot of things. It's gauging baby, it's gauging things like variability, it's gauging whether there are decelerations, it's gauging whether there's minimal variability, it's gauging bradycardia, it's gauging tachycardia, and it's gauging things called late decelerations, which is what we're going to get in today. In addition to that, it's also looking at mom's contraction pattern. And on the board, I'm going to use the whiteboard to help you understand why this is so important. I'm going to put this line here to give you a dividing line, just so you can kind of see what we're getting at. Now, when this is done, generally there's going to be more information on here, and there's going to be some lines and there's going to be some numbers. I'm keeping it really basic for you today to help you understand why your contraction pattern during labor and delivery is so critical, especially if your baby has a traumatic brain injury. Now, baby is up here, mom's here. The reason on the electronic fetal heart monitor, they are tracking mom's contractions. And so what you can see is mom going along, and then mom has a contraction, and then boom, and then the contraction goes, and then here we go back, okay? That's mom. Mom's going, and then we have a contraction. Now, when things are going well, what we will see is when mom has this contraction, the baby is going to react to that contraction. Okay, the baby is going to react. And normally what we're going to see when things are going well is baby is here in this normal range for the heart rate. And I know that variability is important. I'm not going to be making any squiggly lines. I'm just going to use a regular line for this. So that doesn't mean that we have no variability. This is just to show you to give you an example. So baby is going here, baby is going, we've got the contraction coming, baby reacts to mom's contraction. Baby comes up, baby goes right back to the baseline, and there we go. So what you can see is that essentially, in its basic sense, baby, when mom had the contraction, baby met mom. Baby met. Baby is impacted by the contraction, boom, goes down, comes back up, there we go. This is a good situation. Now, I know it's not perfect, but you get the point. This is what we want to see when things are going well. Where there can be problems is when we have late decelerations. Late decelerations show up like this, okay? This is how late decel, I'm gonna get this out of here. With your late decelerations, this is what you'll see. You'll see baby going along, and you'll see mom having the contraction. Baby's going along, here, down, and here. Now you can see the problem with this. Mom's contraction is here. Baby does not meet mom based on mom's contraction. Baby is way down here. Baby's late. Baby missed mom. They didn't meet up. This is what we call a late deceleration or late decel. From a medical legal standpoint, when I see this or when we see this, this can be problematic, especially if this is allowed to go on for a considerable amount of time and it is not rectified. Late decelerations can suggest that there is a decreased blood flow to the placenta or placental insufficiency. When we're dealing with an HIE diagnosis or an HIE brain injury, what is that? An HIE brain injury is a reduction or cutoff of oxygenated blood getting to the baby, which can cause a traumatic brain injury. If you've got a bunch of these late decelerations happening, What is this telling you? The placenta is having issues. There's a blood flow issue somewhere. So this is why doctors and nurses and medical professionals, they cannot allow these to continue to go on and on and on for a considerable amount of time, because the baby can be adversely impacted. Late decelerations are just one area of analysis that we have to look at when a baby has a traumatic brain injury. And that is why mom's contraction pattern during labor and delivery, it is important, because mom's contractions are what allows us to see how the baby is reacting to that pattern. Now, I know that, for a lot of families who have had a baby who has a traumatic brain injury at birth, they may not want to talk with the birth injury lawyer like myself immediately. But I'm telling you, if you do have any questions about what may have caused this injury to your baby, make sure, and you were at a hospital and you had an electronic fetal monitor hooked up, make sure that you not only get your records, mom's records and baby's records, but you want the readings from the electronic fetal heart monitor. You want to get these records, because this monitor, this thing is tracking in real time. I don't have the other information on here, but generally this thing will have date, it'll have time, it'll have a lot of information on it that allows us to be able to track and put the pieces to the puzzle together as it pertains to what was going on with you during labor and delivery. So, like I said, make sure if you have any questions, regardless of whether you're going to speak to a lawyer or not, if you've got any questions and concerns about your baby's, what caused your baby's traumatic brain injury, and whether it was medical malpractice, you make sure you get mom's records, you get baby's records, and you get your hands on these readings from the electronic fetal heart monitor. You generally have to do that, make that request in writing to the hospital, and make sure when they do send you your records that you go through everything. You want to make sure that they've given you these strips, because sometimes what they'll do is they'll maybe give you the nurse's notes or the nurse's summary, but the strips aren't there. They'll give you the nurse's interpretation of what the strips say. You want the actual strip. The nurse may interpret this as being okay. The nurse may not make a note of this, but on the strip, for people who know what they're looking at, we know that this is a problem. So you just want to make sure that you have an opportunity to get that type of information for yourself, because your view today about things may not be the same view that you're going to hold 5 years from now. And if you've got this information for yourself going into the future, you're well ahead of the game. If you have more questions, maybe you're watching this video tonight because your baby has an HIE injury and you have questions as to what caused the injury. Was it medical malpractice? Was it genetics? Was it developmental? What was it? If you have that going on, what I might just do is go ahead and get yourself. There's a telephone number down below. Call my office. Remember, it doesn't cost you any money. It doesn't cost you anything out of your pocket to talk with us, have a consultation with us initially about your baby's story, about what happened. No cost. When you contact my office, though, make sure that you pick a good date and a time to get on our calendar, so either myself or Renee, we can know when to call you back and to talk with you about what's going on with your baby. In addition to that, you want to make sure that you provide my office with a good email address, because sometimes we have to send correspondence through email, and we want to make sure that we're sending it to an email address that you check frequently. And finally, before I get out of here for the night, I practice law here in the state of Maryland, and sometimes individuals will call my office, they'll call my number. They are in the United States, but they're not in Maryland. If that is you, just remember that we have to use what we call co-counsel or local counsel. In other words, a lawyer in your state. And that's something that we can look to work to help you with, but I just want to make sure you understand that co-counsel or local counsel aspect of things if you are not here in the state of Maryland. All right, that's going to be it for tonight's quick educational video. Again, I'm Marcus Boston, and I'm one of the childbirth injury and medical malpractice lawyers practicing law here in the state of Maryland at Boston Law Group, LLC. We'll talk with you next time. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day.